Stand Up Upstate. I'm Anna.
I'm Abby Rose.
And today we are talking about voting in South Carolina. We have where to go, who to talk to, what websites to visit, and things to put on your calendar.
Today, our very own editor, Michelle, is interviewing Miss Mikayla Mangle from the ACLU. They will be discussing these hows and whens and nooks and crannies of voter registration. Without further ado, please enjoy.
Hey everybody, this is Stand Up Upstate. I'm your guest interviewer today, Michelle. I'm here with Mikayla Mangle. Mikayla, do you want to introduce yourself and tell everybody who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. So my name is Mikayla Mangle. I am the Upstate Organizer with the ACLU of South Carolina. I live in Greenville, and yeah, I'm just in the Upstate. We cover the whole state, but I primarily am in the Upstate region, doing organizing work, mobilizing, coalition building, that kind of thing. Happy to be here.
Today's topic is get out the votes. We want people to vote because voting is so important. So we're going to talk about how important it is, why it matters, what's under threat, and how to vote responsibly and in an informed way. So the first question I have for you is, what makes the right to vote foundational over every other right of South Carolinians?
The right to vote is extremely important. So we live in a democracy, so our voice does matter. I think probably anyone who's listening to this knows that there's been many attacks on our democracy and constitutional rights. And voting in this election, and any election really, is the first step against any of these extremist tactics, and also to be able to use your voice to, vote for people who align with your own values, to protect democracy and our constitutional rights. And I think it's also worth saying that, people in power, politicians, they know how important the right to vote is. That's why we have seen attacks on the right to vote historically and in modern days, right? Against Black people, women, like they know how powerful the right to vote is. And that's why there are all of these strategic attacks to silence certain voices.
What are some of those methodologies that they're using to try to silence people who they think will vote against them?
So most recently, we've seen a lot of redistricting efforts, especially in the South, even right here in South Carolina. So they're trying to redraw the congressional maps mid-cycle. So usually every 10 years, once the census is done, they will redraw the maps or look at redrawing the maps. And they tried to do that before the 10 years this time. And it would have disenfranchised a lot of voters, specifically Black voters, any voters of color, and specifically Democrat voters and independents. So there's a lot of efforts that have been done primarily in the South to silence these voices and make it harder for certain groups to vote.
Yeah, I hear that. And also, it's really difficult for people to understand not only why voting matters, but how to vote. So with all the clickbait things that there are out there, how do people find reliable information on what candidates are on the ballot, who they should vote for, what these candidates' policies are? Like, how do they figure out credible, non-biased information about who's running for office?
There are so many things out there, especially with social media, that can be extremely biased for sure. I think what's so important to look at is things that ask very straightforward questions and a variety of questions. So really looking at things that say, what are your top priorities? And not just questions that focus on a lot of the culture wars that we see in politics today. So I feel like almost everything is about either transgender individuals, LGBTQ community just as a whole, reproductive rights. And of course, it's important to know what people's stances are on those. We want to know what people's stances on our reproductive freedom and trans rights. But there's so many other things that encompass politics, right? So transgender girls are not affecting your right to get a job or the roads in South Carolina. So I think it's important to note that if something's just asking things that are hitting on those like big hot topic buttons and not on like local issues and economic issues and housing and healthcare, then that may be more of a biased thing, and you're not getting the full picture of what a candidate actually believes in and wants to change when in office. So that would be my best advice for that.
Yeah. No, I've noticed it's a lot of people want to go straight to the very divisive things instead of trying to figure out how we live in a society together. I also want to highlight the importance of hearing both sides of everything. I am of the opinion, if you don't know the argument against your position, then you don't know your position. So
Mhm.
tell me a little bit about how you feel about people understanding both sides of the issues and what barriers we see of people getting both sides of the story in recent years.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's super important to understand both sides. I love what you said that you should know your argument, or the argument against what you believe in, because one, that strengthens your own belief. And it helps you be able to argue for your own belief. But yeah, it's super important to hear, both sides of the aisles, what they have to say on an issue, because you can't just have a one-sided thing. And I think that we kind of have that a lot with like what news media we choose to watch and, our algorithm on our social media, what pops up for us. So we're kind of like just listening to one side. But it's really important to hear what other people have to say. Because I think like we kind of live in a world where it's like you're either super, super far this way or you're super, super far this way, and nobody's ever going to get along. And that's not actually true, right? So, like,
Right.
there's a lot of things like I may agree with someone who doesn't agree with me on a lot of other issues, but we can come together on like one specific issue. I know at the ACLU, we actually do work with a lot of groups who like fundamentally disagree with us on a lot of stuff, but on some issues we can come together, and like we've actually had legislation or worked with, people to pass legislation that have been introduced and has become law, with people that we typically wouldn't work with on a normal basis. But that's why it's
Right.
so good to kind of understand both sides and listen to your opponents, because you never know. Like sometimes you can come together and do some really great work.
So confirmation bias, right? You're
Yeah.
naturally going to want to believe the thing that aligns with your thoughts, right? And also echo
Mhm.
chambers where
Yeah.
you only hear the people with your same beliefs. I think it's important to get out of those two things, to be aware of your confirmation bias and to get out of that echo chamber. If we are not all informed, all we're going to do is fight because we don't know the whole issue. Everybody needs to know the whole issue. Everybody needs to vote knowing the whole issue. And then we can come together as a country, as a society, and do better, period.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it kind of goes back to like what we were talking about earlier, that there's more issues than just like what's constantly like I feel like blaring on, the news or social media, like whether it's I don't know, queer issues or right, abortion, like these hot button issues. Like it's not just that. Like, and people need to
It's
realize like there's so much more that goes into policy making and like the economy and right, so like healthcare,
yes,
housing,
yes,
affordable housing, like these are the issues that people are less educated on, and I think it's
right.
really important to familiarize yourself with more of these things.
We all just need to understand each other. We just need to talk some more. That's the root of
That's
it.
the
We need
thing. Yeah.
we need to talk and we need to vote.
Yes.
So now everybody, when people turn out and get out to vote, they always think about presidential elections, right? But we have midterms going on right now. There are
Mhm.
local elections going on right now. Talk to me a little bit about the importance of voting at all levels of government and kind of like the barriers you see, like why people don't know who's running for their county council or their city council. So what are the barriers there in getting people to vote for these more local things also?
I think we're constantly seeing a lower turnout in more local elections. I think part of the reason for that is there's less media attention on local elections, especially like at the county level, even the state level, but especially the county level. So like, I mean, if you're running for Congress, you're going to be in the news, right? There's going to be a ton of articles in like main news outlets about you. But if you're just running for the school board, or applying to be on the library board or county council, right? There's not going to be a lot of news attention about you, and your name's not going to really be out there. And also, I think another thing, especially with the school board, most of the time in South Carolina, school board elections are nonpartisan. So I think when things are nonpartisan, a lot of people don't really pay much attention to them because it's really easy to vote when someone just has like their political affiliation next to their name, right? Because if you're like, I'm a Republican, so I'll just vote for Republican. I'm a Democrat, I'll just vote for the Democrat. But when it's kind of harder when you don't know, so you actually have to do the research into those policies. So I think we see a much lower turnout, but local elections affect so much, right? In our local
Yes.
community and just from like day-to-day things. So for like the school board, for example, is super important because they're looking at the budget and they're allocating money to school districts. And that is super important, right? Whether you have a child in school or not, right? These are, the future South
Yeah.
Carolinians, right? Who are going
Yeah.
to grow up and be in healthcare systems, service jobs. And like we want people to be proud of the education they receive in South Carolina. And it's really important to look at those local elections because that's how, schools are being funded and that money is being allocated. Also, the county council, like roads, zoning
Yeah.
issues, like all of these little things that people don't really think about, but actually are always kind of complaining about, right? Like everyone's always complaining about the roads and, oh, is that another housing development going up? Like we hear people
Yeah.
complain about this stuff all the time. And these aren't super divisive issues either, but they are issues that affect people's, daily commute to work and, ability to afford a house. And these are things that are happening at the local level, at like local council meetings that people, one, don't attend and also don't even vote, for their council person. So, yeah, it's really important for local elections to get the same attention as all of the other state and national elections, and for people to vote in these elections.
Yeah, I think what I hear the most when people say they don't want to vote or they just didn't want to, they don't think it matters. But go to one county council meeting or a city council meeting, go to one small meeting, and you will see how much one opinion matters. I am
Yes,
even guilty of being like, man, I'm all the way across town. I don't want to drive over there. Nobody's gonna know, but they will know because it matters.
it does matter. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So all right. So like on that vein, let's talk about registering to vote for the midterms. What are some important things about how to know if you're registered, how to get registered, and where to go to vote?
Yeah, so the deadline to register to vote for this upcoming election in November it's always 30 days before the election. So this will be October 4th will be the last day to register. You can check your registration by going to SCVotes.org. So we can put that link. And yeah, so you can just put in your address, your name, and I think like the last four digits of your social, and you'll tell you if you're registered or not. And if you're not registered to vote, you can register online. You do need your South Carolina driver's license or an ID issued by the DMV. And if you moved, you are going to need to update that address with your DMV, but you can do that all online. I had to do that before the primaries because I moved. So it's pretty quick, pretty easy to do it online.
So what about people who have completed a felony sentence or people who don't know about their eligibility for a variety of reasons? How can they check
Mhm.
on their registration?
Yeah, so if you committed a felony and you've served your sentence, you can vote. And I think that's something a lot of people don't know about. So as long as
I
you
didn't know that.
yeah. So if you've completed your sentence and you're not on probation or parole, you can re-register to vote. You may need like a letter from, I think it's like the Department of Probation and Parole, just to confirm that you have finished serving your sentence and you're no longer on probation or parole, but then you are able to vote. And yeah, so if you actually go to SC Votes, there's a lot of information about who can register to vote, if you can vote, and that kind of thing.
So somebody doesn't have the right kind of ID, or somebody feels uncomfortable by somebody working there. What are people's rights, requirements, and rights at the poll?
Yeah. So if you don't have like an ID that is accepted, which is like a driver's license, photo ID issued by the DMV, like a passport. So if you don't have any of those things, and again, there's a list on SCVotes.gov to look through. But yeah, if you don't have that and you're not able to get it before like you're going to the polls to vote, what you can do is ask for a provisional ballot from a poll worker, and they'll give you one of those. You'll fill it out, and you will need to go to your county, I think it's your county voter registration office, to show a photo ID once you do get it. And you have to do that before the certification of the election, which is typically going to be a few days after the election. So you would still need to eventually show that photo ID before the election is completely over.
But that's like in an emergency situation.
Yeah.
Oh no, something happened. I lost my ID on the highway, something like that. That you can
Yeah.
use a provisional ballot. Perfect.
Yeah,
Good to
provisional
know.
ballot. And if you you run into any issues with that, so like if a poll worker is like weird about it and doesn't want to give you a provisional ballot, you can call, it's 866 our vote, and can put that to,
Yep.
I'll send that to you, that link. And that's like a hotline. So there are like attorneys, voting specialists who will answer questions the day of and talk to a poll worker about your rights. So
A lot of people say, well, I can't get such and such ID because I don't have my birth certificate. The health department is where you go to get your birth certificate. If you were born in Greenville County, a lot of my friends were born in Greenville County. They did not know that you go to the health department and you can get a copy of your birth certificate.
yeah, absolutely. If you don't have like a photo ID and you're not able to get one, you can ask for a provisional ballot and an affidavit to say that you have like special circumstances that you're unable to get a photo ID. So like if you don't have a birth certificate and you don't think you're going to be able to get one in time, you can fill out that affidavit. And see if your vote will count. But that is an option as well. But you do have to show that you don't have the resources. If you're a college student, right, and you're from home, there's a couple ways that you can vote. So you can do what's called an absentee ballot, which I have done when I was in college, and it is quite a long process. So it's something that you probably want to go ahead and start thinking about, because you are going to have to request an application from your county voter registration office. And again, you can go to SCVotes.gov. I feel like I should be sponsored.
Link it.
Like, yeah. You can find where your county voter registration office is and where to, mail your request to. You'll be mailed an application. You'll fill that out. You can bring it to the voter registration office, and then they will mail you your absentee ballot. Like, I think it's 30 days before the election. So this is something you may want to go ahead and start doing, getting the application out. But yeah, you will complete your absentee ballot, and then you can bring it in person to your voter registration office and just have proof of ID, a valid photo ID. So you can do that, or something super or much easier is you can just register in the county where your college is. Obviously, if you are in South Carolina, but you'll use your like dorm wherever you're living on campus as your address.
If somebody has accessibility issues, you can't get there, or you can't walk from a car to there, like what are ways to help people get out there to vote, whether it be if they have a disability or if they just have economic issues, they don't have transportation, whatever the case may be? How do we get people to vote?
So if you're not able to like physically go into the polling place, there is curbside voting. So you stay in your vehicle and a poll worker will come to you and you can fill out your ballot inside your car. Typically, you're the only person who's allowed to be in the car as you're voting, but you are allowed assistance. So if you qualify for assistance when voting, someone can be in the car with you. Even if you are able to go into the polling place, typically they try to choose polling places that are accessible for folks with disabilities. So having ramps, having railings down hallways, accessible doorways that are wide enough for wheelchairs, that kind of thing. And if you need extra assistance when you are actually physically at the polls, at the booth voting, you are allowed that. They can't deny you
Okay.
that. So yeah.
I did not know any of this.
Mm-hmm.
That is my privilege as an able-bodied person. I
Right.
just,
Yeah.
I never thought about it. It wasn't an
Yeah.
issue to me.
Yeah. A lot of people don't. I mean, even folks with disabilities don't know that. And I think it's a
Right.
really important thing to know. Like if you are hard of hearing, if you're legally blind, like you can have somebody there.
Right. And here's the thing that I've seen come up where people try to take selfies while they are voting. So what are some of the rules that you have to abide by, like while you're voting? You're not supposed to have your phone out. I know that much because I've had people complain about it.
Yeah, yeah. I would say don't bring your phone. I typically leave mine in the car, or keep it on silent. But yeah, don't take a selfie while you're in like the voting booth for sure. Definitely get your sticker, take one once you're outside. But yeah, what I do is I typically leave my phone in the car, or if you're not comfortable doing that, just turn it off, just so that there's no weird run-ins or anything like that. It's just safer not to have it on you.
Okay. So in summary, what are the dates? What are the important things? Say SE votes one more time. Tell us all the information.
Yeah, so SCVotes.gov is going to be your best friend. You can check if you're registered there. You can register there. If you need to change your address, remember you're going to have to do that through the DMV, but you can also do that online. And if you have any questions about like accessibility issues, who can vote, what kind of ID is allowed to vote, questions about provisional ballots, SCVotes.gov is going to have that information. On election day, if you have issues, you can call the hotline, which is 866 votes or 866 our vote.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so that's the hotline. So if you have any issues on election day, call that number, and you can hopefully talk to an attorney or someone who will have the knowledge to tell you what your rights are and can talk to a poll worker for you. Last day to register to vote is October 4th. So
Let me ask you about voter turnout. We don't see a lot with local elections. We don't see a lot in primaries. I don't think we see enough at all, period. What does voter turnout look like and how do you think we can fix it?
yeah. I think so this past primaries, we had more of a turnout, still not a great turnout, but more of a turnout than we've had in the past. Um, and I think to kind of fix that issue of still having low voter turnout, especially in local elections and even state elections, is telling your friends, telling everybody you know about voting. Be annoying about it. Like
Be
send,
that guy.
yeah,
Do
seriously.
it.
Like at your book club, next time you go get drinks with your friends, talk about voting. Be like, are you registered to vote? Pull out your phone. Let's check to see if you're
Yes.
registered. And another thing, I know like because I'm in advocacy and organizing work, a lot of my friends come to me like, hey, how do I like find information about this candidate and who's running? So I would say just be proactive and go ahead and like send information to your friends, right? Because it's a lot of people like, and I get it, like if you're working a full-time job and you have childcare or whatever, like you don't really want to take the time to like research all these candidates.
To,
So
to
if you
dig it
have,
up organically. Yeah. So
yeah,
sharing is caring.
Exactly. Like send them links, send them social media of candidates so that they can learn about, who they're voting for and who they want to vote for, right? So I
And
think
there's
just like
nothing more
spreading the word.
important than the people who are creating the laws that we live by. So
Yeah.
people say, "Oh, I don't get involved in politics." You should, because
Mm.
politicians create the laws that you live by. They
Yeah.
tell I can't make that any simpler. They tell us as a society what we can and cannot do. It is important for us, for them to be representative of us. Whatever that opinion may be, they need to
Right.
represent us. And the only way we can make sure that happens is that we vote.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think like really hammering into people, like I don't like shame people, of course. I mean, like just let people know, like, because I think that is a huge thing, especially now, of people being very critical of democracy. And I mean, like, I can understand it, but like there's this idea of like, oh, what, like you were saying, our vote doesn't matter, what we say matters. They already are going to do whatever they want. And that's not true, right? Like they were
Right.
going to redraw the congressional maps here in South Carolina, and they didn't because people showed out and, rallied and went to public testimony and said, we didn't want this. And I think that politicians know how much power people have. Like I said at the beginning, that's why they didn't let women vote. That's why they didn't let Black people vote. Like we had to
Mm-hmm.
earn the right to vote because they knew how much power the vote has.
So, all right. Thank you so much, Mikayla, for telling us all about all this information that I didn't even know. And I thought I knew a lot about voting, the importance of voting. Everybody, please go vote. Mikayla, do you want to roll us out with a final message?
Yeah, thanks for having me. And again, yeah, go to SCVotes.gov if you have any questions about anything. Also, you can go to ACLU SC if you want to get more involved. When after the election and you want to keep being involved in the fight for democracy and constitutional rights, feel free to come volunteer with us, come to any events that are across the state, and we do a lot of stuff in the upstate. So yeah, can't wait to see y'all out there.
Thank you, Mikayla, for taking the time to participate in this interview. What I really loved about this interaction was when they were discussing the power of our voice and the power of our vote, how it does matter. And a very fine case and recent examples when they're able to stop South Carolina from redistricting and constricting the Black voters in South Carolina. I thought that was very moving, and it's a great example of how much change you can conduct with just your vote.
With your vote and your voice. That was just a matter of people reaching out to their politicians and going, hey, let's not do this. And when they talk about things like the importance of the local elections, you go back to our couple of videos ago in data centers. That's not being run even at a state level. That's on a county and local level. So it really helps to get engaged and know who your people are. And as we keep learning again and again from Stand Up Upstate, getting involved is the way. That is the way.
Getting involved and knowing what you're getting involved with,
Yes.
like what Michelle said about knowing your position so that you can also understand your opposition.
Know your candidates.
Know your candidates.
Both ways. Both ways. I'm going to remind you that your home base for everything South Carolina voting is SCVotes.gov. Pretty much any question that you have from who your candidates are, if you're registered to vote, etc., is on that website. And the final day to register for this upcoming election, we're almost there, is October 4th. You have until October 4th. So if you have had a change in address, a change in name, and you think there's anything that you're going to have to tweak, the time to do it is now and not October 3rd. And don't let the voter restrictions that were being spoken of earlier this year stop you. Those things did not pass the way that they had hoped that it might pass. So don't let something like your lack of birth certificate or names not matching on things, don't let that get in the way of attempting to go vote, because you may still be able to. So SC Votes is your place for that. Well, thank you. And we'll see you next time on Stand Up Upstate.